Hey guys, thank you for tuning in again to Bigfoot BS with Bill and Sam. And we have some bonus content today with Charlie Lawson. We got to talk to him this morning, and Charlie has some great stories that I want everybody to hear about the cryptid world. And I'm gonna let him start off with some dogman, a couple dogman stories from the area around here.
So when I was younger, I was always fascinated with cryptids, things like that. So I started interviewing people. I was probably in 8th grade when I started. The first person that I interviewed, she told me of a dog man, actually, and I'd never heard of that before, being so young, of course. So she said that she was driving to Appalachia. She was on a place called the Straits. This guy ran out in front of her in a dog costume, and she hit him. He rode over to the side of the road. She panicked and went to drive on into Appalachia to get the police, and she looked over, and he was chasing her on the side of her car. And probably doing about 35 up through there, and she floored it and left. Of course, she filed a police report. Nothing ever came of it. I was like, well, that's kind of a crazy story. But it really stuck out in my head because of the thing looked like a dog. A few years later, I'm working at Hardee's with a lady, and she came in talking about her husband got in a fight with a dog. And I thought, well, that's a crazy thing. And she was talking about him wrestling. Now, she was not the most educated woman, let me say it that way. And I kind of played it off till her husband came in, and I said, so I heard you got in a fight with a dog. He said, yeah, I grabbed him by his arms and threw him out the window. And I thought, well, that's crazy because dogs don't have arms. So kind of, heard that, let it go. One day, my grandma was driving to church. My uncle was driving. Her grandma didn't drive. And they went by Roaring Branch, which was on the way to Appalachia. And she said, Charlie, I saw the strangest thing this morning. I said, well, what'd you see, Granny? And she said, a dog ran out in front of the car on its hind legs, jumped over into the river, and took off up the side of the mountain. And I thought, that's 3 times that this has just popped up. So there's something in the area people are seeing that looks like a dog on its hind legs. The more interviews I did, the more I came across this phenomenon. People seeing this thing, hearing this thing, having encounters with this thing. And so, it kind of piques my interest. I've never seen it myself. I've hiked Roaring Branch 1,000 times. I've never seen any tracks up there or anything like it, but, it's one of those personal things I'd love to come across that at some point in time.
Yeah, and of course, you said one's from your grandmother, so I mean, it's coming from a pretty legit source, there, and and those other people as well. And I'm also fascinated with another story that you had told us about the old Roop.
Old Rupp.
Old Rupp.
So, in Wise County, Virginia, out in the valley, a settler, an old settler, they said, lived out there. He didn't bother anybody. He kept to himself. People started noticing their cows were missing. A young boy supposedly saw this man eating cow hooves or cow legs in his shack, uncooked. So he came in, told the sheriff. Sheriff went out, found that to be true. Apparently, the guy killed the sheriff, and the sheriff didn't come back to town. A posse got together. They went out, they raided the shack, set it on fire. He ran out, ran off in the woods and was never seen again.
Mm-hmm.
They found cow parts, and they found the dead sheriff in the shack, what was left of the shack. So that's the setup legend for it. That's how I read it in the book. My connection to the story is just up the road is Maples Gap. And at Maples Gap, me and Hubert Durham one day were walking up through there, and we came across a bunch of farmers off in a field, and they were looking at something. And I said, what are those guys looking at? Hubert said, well, let's walk down there and find out. So we walked down, and lo and behold, there's half a cow. All the skin is still there, but the back part of the cow is gone, and the skin's been folded open. The front half of the cow is there, and everything inside is walled out. It's just carved out. There's nothing there, and there's no blood anywhere. And I asked one of the old farmers, where's the blood? What did this? And the old guy said, Rupp did this. And so, lo and behold, old Rupp comes back, years later. And supposedly he's a vampire that runs around the mountains in the area. And so apparently,
so it's similar to me, something like the Mothman, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Similar incident like that. So yeah, that's pretty neat. I'd never heard that story till you told about it this morning. Now, here's one that we both know together, me and Charlie and I, and it's about the actual area that we're in right now that's called Cracker's Neck. And I'm going to let Charlie tell his version of the story, and it's very, very interesting.
So, the version of the story that I heard is one of the ways this area came to be known as Cracker's Neck. Supposedly, the Cracker family, the son and the father, had a cabin up here. And they came up to do hunting and trapping for furs. And there was a wild man up here, they said. And the wild man was between 8 and 10 foot tall. It varies. And they had several encounters with him, and it terrified them. So they quit going out at night. Well, one morning, the father decided he was going to go out and check the traps, and he didn't come back when he usually did. So the son goes out to find the father, and instead of finding the father, he finds a hairy man and pieces of his father. And so the hairy man doesn't realize he's there, so he shoots him in the back. Hairy man falls over dead. He goes back to the cabin, collects all his stuff, and comes back out and decides that he needs to bury the body of the hairy man since he shot him. So he drags this body to some rocks and just covers it over because it was so big and so heavy, he had a hard time moving it. So he finds a crack in some rocks, drops it in there, dumps some rocks on it, and then leaves. And supposedly now that somewhere up here, that body is buried.
Right.
So that's the version of the story I heard.
Yeah, and along with that version too, I'm pretty sure that Joshua Cracker actually went down, I think, into Big Stone Gap about a week later, and actually had the authorities come up, and he had buried his father, what was remains left of him, next to the cabin. Well, we know that's true for a fact because those remains were actually dug up by the authorities. But whenever Joshua Cracker went to take the authorities to where he had covered up the Bigfoot body, from what the story was told was it was not there. But that just goes to show you that how this area is called Cracker's Neck. It's along with another area over here on High Knob called Moping Hollow, and the reason they call it Moping Hollow is because of these sounds that they hear they can't identify, which we today know as probably Bigfoot sounds. Is there any other interesting stories you know about the area?
There's thousands of them.
Thousands of them.
We could talk all day long about crazy stuff that's supposedly seen in the area.
Yeah, and you say that you know a couple other people that have had Bigfoot encounters, and you had told me one about the guy looking over the ledge.
Yes.
Let's hear that one.
I had a friend, I'm not going to identify him because I don't know if he'd want to be on video or not, but he supposedly was hiking on Little Stone Mountain, and there was a rock that teetered, and he couldn't get it to teeter. So he continues his hike past this rock. He comes to a rock ledge. It had started to rain, and there's a hole in the back of this rock ledge. He had placed his day pack in that hole, and while he was waiting for the rain to subside, he heard that rock shift. And he thought, what would make that rock shift? And so he thought it may have been a bear. The next thing he said, he walked down to where the rock was, and he could smell like an old dog, like an old wet dog, really musty. And he got to looking around, and he realized that there was another person up there with him just off the rock ledge. He looked down, and he said the guy was like 8 foot tall and hairy. And so then he realized it wasn't a person. And so he left. Well, he got a couple of friends to come back with him because they didn't believe it happened. He said, my stuff's still up there in that hole. So they got up there, and sure enough, the rock shifted again, and they saw it again.
No way.
Yeah.
And do you know about what year this was?
This would probably been about 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah, it's been many years back.
Yeah. Well, that's great, and if you're able to, we would like to have you on a further episode of maybe just talking about the cryptid things that would be great. Would you be,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, that's all we're going to have today for the bonus content with episode 3 of Bigfoot BS, Bill and Sam. Stay tuned for episode 4.